Friday, everyone. As you know, my name is Jared Geer, and this past weekend, two of our instructors, Brennan Mason with Phantom Regiment and Antonio Fox with Genesis, had the opportunity to go to the 2023 DCI Drum Major Leadership Summit. And last night I got to speak to Mr. Mason in regards to preparation for the DCI season, as well as his experience with the summit.
So first of all, I obviously had to fly in, flew in super early. And I actually had to fly into Chicago because, drum corps is expensive and, it's a lot cheaper going to O'Hare than it is to get to Indianapolis. And once we got there, we were up and going right away. We checked in and stuff, and we started off with talking about how to set a culture. And every time we'd have a presentation, we'd break out into these smaller groups that were led by former drum majors in the activity. So for example, our very own Sam Crawford was there, David Warren, and a bunch of other people from different corps, and it was a really good time. And that was kind of our first day. And then afterwards at about 10:30, we broke off and had a nice little ice cream get together where we could sit and chit chat with the other drum majors and have a good time.
So you described to us day one, but I believe that day two was probably your most busiest day. What was that like?
So I was up and ready for them at 7, getting ready and, trying to make myself look pretty. I don't know how good of a job I do. What we did was we had 5 drum majors at a table, and we had an assigned person that we were with. So for example, I had the Madison Scouts corps director the first day, and then I had Dan Atchison the second day. And we just they would ask us questions and we would ask them questions. And it was just having a nice conversation with someone in the activity who's, it's not a member, and so you get a different perspective, especially with someone like Dan Atchison. Getting to talk to him was great and learn the ins and outs of what he gets to deal with on a daily basis and what he does.
So you're kind of in a transition period because did you originally start off with cadets and then went to Phantom Regiment, or did you go to another corps, then cadets, then Phantom Regiment? Overall, what has this experience been like for you in this sort of transition stage?
So it's actually, we had a good joke about it this weekend, but I auditioned with Phantom Regiment in 21, and the corps director was none other than David Warren. And I've always loved David. I thought he was a phenomenal conductor when he was in drum corps, and he was someone that I looked up to. But I was given a lot of grief over because I would nonstop talk. I was like, oh yeah, David was the one who cut me back in 21. But so that was a fun conversation to have. But yeah, so after that, I was fortunate enough to get a spot at the cadets. Had a phenomenal summer with them, which by the way, I loved getting to meet Kat and then get to meet Adrian Allen, their other drum major. Great group of people there. I had a phenomenal summer. But yeah, it's been a fun time working with Carrie at Phantom and kind of getting used to how the corps runs there. There's a lot of similarities between drum corps because after all, it is drum corps, but there's also some differences, and it's just, you just have to be super involved, and you kind of pick up on things as you go. And once you've done a season of drum corps, it's a lot easier to adjust. Whereas, I was kind of learning on the fly the first year like everyone else.
I know that you and I were talking a little bit before about South Dakota and band, or at least in the marching arts, is completely different than what I may assume. So just talk about your own personal testimony being in South Dakota and then now succeeding within drum corps. How's drum corps impacted your career in school or vice versa?
In South Dakota, it's kind of this, there are a few people who do drum corps, but it's not really this big thing like it is in these other states like the Texases, the Californias, even just in the entire East Coast. We just don't have the numbers for that to be a popular thing. And so when I realized that I wanted to do drum corps back at DCI Muncie at the drum major camp out there, and I came back and told everyone I wanted to be a part of Phantom Regiment, I want to do drum corps, I want to be a conductor, it was met with a lot of adversity because it's you think you can do that? That's not what we do here. Only the best of the best, make it into the horn lines, let alone being a drum major. That's the unfortunate part of it. And I'm trying really hard working at clinics and stuff to kind of change that mindset. But that's the unfortunate thing about being in one of these smaller states where you don't have these big band programs, is that it's just not something that people think you can do until you get there. And so, being able to do drum corps and finally realizing that I can do it, it fills you with a lot of confidence. And so like at my university, like it's just so, like life is so much easier when you can have confidence in yourself. And that's something that I lacked in high school because of environments like that. So now I kind of escaped from it and I'm in drum corps where I'm surrounded by all these people who work just as hard as I do. It makes it so much easier.
I mean, well said, definitely. I mean, and I know that a lot of viewers are probably watching and they're like, oh my gosh, I want to be a conductor and I want to go to the summit just to learn. What is some advice that you would relay to a young aspiring conductor of any aspiring corps or even in their high school program? What are some advice that you would relate to them?
Yeah, so there's a couple things, but the biggest thing is confidence, right? Like I worked with Colin. I'm a former student of Silent Command. I worked with Colin, I worked with Claire, and it was one of those things where it was like I had all the tools in 21 for that Phantom audition, and I knew everything I needed to know about leadership to succeed in that audition. But the biggest thing was I was trying to be who they wanted. I wasn't confident enough in myself to be the conductor that I was. I was trying to be who I thought, David Warren and Phantom Regiment wanted. Whereas coming back in 20 for the 2023 audition, it was, I'm gonna be who I am, and whether they like it or not, like I'm gonna show them what I have to offer. And if I'm not the right person, I'm not the right person. And that just comes across so much better to them when you're auditioning. And in terms of improving your conducting, watch some head cams, watch some orchestral conductors. That was the biggest thing for me. Like I watched the Ryan Bancrofts, the Gustavo Dudamels of the world, the Carlos Kleibers, and that's how you kind of expand your toolbox into this. Oh, I can do more than just, give them a crescendo and a decrescendo. I can do so much more. I can portray the emotion of the piece. That's my technical aspect of conducting. And we have head cams on our YouTube page. Those are gems that more people need to see if you're trying to be a DCI drum major, because those are people that were highly successful in this activity, just basically showing you how to do it,